From 3D printers to mental health services, public libraries across the province are a long way from simply being repositories for books and archives. And that's true in different ways in different parts of the province. So for this week's Ontario Hubs check-in, we're checking out the changing role of libraries. To do that, we're joined in St. Thomas in Elgin County, Ontario, via Skype by Brian Michelli. He is Director of Community and Cultural Services and the CEO for the Elgin County Library. In our studio at Western University in London, Ontario, Carolyn Doyle, Coordinator of Adult Services at the London Public Library, and here in the provincial capital, Vickery Bowles, City Librarian with the Toronto Public Library. Vickery, it's nice to have you here in our Toronto studio, and to Brian and Carolyn and Points Beyond, good to have you on the program tonight as well. We have three very different library systems here in three different parts of the province. So on the chance that there is somebody watching who has never stepped foot in any of your branches anywhere, let's start with this. Vickery, what do we need to know about the Toronto Public Library system?
Well, Toronto Public Library is the busiest urban public library system in the world.
In the world?
In the world. Last year, we had 18 million people visit our branches. We have 100 branches. We had 34 million visits to our website, and we had 32 million items borrowed from our collection.
So when you add all those things up together, that makes it the busiest thing in the world?
Yes, yes.
More than New York? More than London?
Yes, we are. On a per capita and a per visit basis, per visit and per use basis, we are the busiest.
You are number one.
Yes.
Carolyn, how about you? What do we need to know about your system?
At London Public Library, we're really fortunate to have 16 branch libraries across our city, all centered in a number of diverse neighborhoods. In addition, we have a central library downtown that serves an important role in meeting the needs of our downtown community, which is currently being revitalized. And last year we had 2.5 million visits to our locations.
Okay, let's go on to Brian. Brian, what would you tell us about the system in Elgin County?
Well, we are a system of 10 branches along the shores of Lake Erie, due south of London. Our facilities range anywhere from a branch as small as 800 square feet up to 5,000 square feet. We serve a largely a rural and a small town population of 50,000 people. We circulate 245,000 items a year. 13,000 of our residents are active card holders. And I would challenge my colleagues and anyone else in Ontario to say, I think we have the prettiest view from any library in Ontario at our Port Stanley branch, which looks out over the harbor in Lake Erie.
We're not going to fight you on that one. That's okay.
Okay.
As long as we're in southwestern Ontario, let me read something here that Mary Baxter, who is our hub captain, our hubster, whatever you want, in southwestern Ontario, she wrote this in a piece that people can read on tvo.org right now. Not all that long ago, Mary writes, the public library was viewed primarily as a destination for bookworms. In recent years, however, libraries have expanded their scope. They're now meeting needs, both technological and social, that are not being met anywhere elsewhere in society. It's a broadening of focus that emphasizes the interests and needs of all those in the community, but in particular, marginalized community members, says Heather Hill, a professor in the Faculty of Information and Media Sciences at Western University. Let's focus on the social aspect, since we all agree it's not just books and archives anymore. Vickery, how do you see these things referred to in Mary's piece playing out in the Toronto system?
Well, it's played out in a number of different ways. And certainly for newcomers, the public library is the first stop for many people who come to Toronto from a different country.
Is that because it's free?
Yes, it is because it's free. It's because we have internet access. We provide housing and educational information, skills development. They learn about Canada. Their children have access to story times and other materials. But the other important part of this is we provide materials in 40 different languages. And this is online as well as in physical form. And people can stay connected to their home country, I think, which is really important. And they can also read materials in their home language. And I also think that's important. I often think if I went to another country and I couldn't find anything to read in English, I would feel much more foreign in that country. So this is a way for people to settle in Toronto and feel at home. And in fact, we have newcomer services with settlement workers in many of our branches. They're not library staff. We have a tripartite relationship with the federal government and the settlement development agencies, and it's a one-stop shop, one-stop place for newcomers to come.
So the library's become kind of the entree point for a lot of new Canadians.
Absolutely.
Kind of a community hub, if you like.
Yes, and it helps them achieve citizenship as well.
Carolyn, the London Public Library, I gather, has started having mental health workers on hand at the Central Branch. How come?
Well, that's right. Well, we've always done our best to meet people at their point of need. And one of the ways that we do this is through working with community partners and collaborating to meet community needs. So out of this, we had a series of programs and workshops that were really successful that we were running with CMHA. And they saw the library as being a safe, welcoming, and inclusive place for people to gather. And their goal was to take some of their mental health services out into the community and to provide some more individualized support. So they thought, what could be a better place than doing that within a public library space? So they pitched the idea to us. We loved it. It's had great success. And we're piloting right now at the Central Library and really hoping to move it out to some of our other locations that also might have similar needs.
You say it's had great success. How are you defining success?
Well, before they even put up a sign or had any kind of a media launch, they're positioned at the top of our stairs on the second floor, so with a desk that just says, welcome. We're here to chat, and the first day they had more than 15 people that just came right up to them and engaged with them in conversations and expressed their needs about how to navigate different social services, where to access places that could give them assistance. Some of them were just looking for someone to have a chat and to give them some additional support and guidance. And that's just continued, and the demand's grown every day.
Gotcha. Brian, how about you in Elgin County? What kind of social services are you offering?
Well, you know, Steve, for us, I think it's more just on a broader level that we're just providing community space. And if you really look at a lot of the pressures that are facing rural Ontario right now, when you look at things like community halls and service clubs, places that people really traditionally gathered, those places are really not there anymore, or at least at not the level they used to be. Yet the library's there as that community space. So really what we're seeing in terms of how we're adapting to the needs of the community is very much on the programming side and being that free and open community space, and responding to what our rural residents need in terms of that place they can go to meet their technology needs, and also to gather in a place that is free and open.
Do you, Vickery, have patrons of the library, or clients? Is that what you call them, clients?
Customers.
Customers, okay. Do you have customers who come to you and say, look, this, I just want to come in here and get a book. I don't want to have to deal with all the social services you're offering. I don't want to have to deal with troubled people, all this kind of stuff. I just want to come to the library and get a book. Do you deal with that?
Well, people can come to the library and just get a book. That's the wonderful thing about the public library, is that we provide a diversity of information and resources for people from regardless of your background or your cultural background, socioeconomic status. And so the public library is there to serve the needs of the community, and I think people understand that.
So no complaints then from...
No, not at all.
People who may prefer the library, the way it was back in the day.
No, not at all. And, we're very, increasingly we try to zone different areas of the library for particular uses and spaces. So if there's a quiet area that people want to study, we make sure that space is available for them. And then the more collaborative, livelier areas of the library, we make sure that those areas are in different parts of the library, including the newcomer services or the whatever social services we're offering with public health or whatever.
Brian, I should ask you this too, following up, because Vickery mentioned quiet areas. I guess there's two schools of thought on this, right? Some people want libraries to be nice and quiet and nobody to make a peep, and others kind of like a bit of activity and a bit of sense that there's stuff happening there. How do you play it?
For us, our libraries, most of them are small enough where everything's happening together all the time. So there is always a level of activity, and that could be the kids coming home from school using the computers because we have high speed that may not be available to them at home, or a program where we don't have a separate meeting room, so that's happening in the middle of the space. So by its nature, it's always been very dynamic in a smaller library context, and I think our patrons are quite fine with that. We do have private study areas, that kind of thing. But for the most part, we are a very interactive space, always have.
And Carolyn, let me follow up with you in this regard. There's, I guess, somebody who's well up on library technology named Joan Fry Williams, library aficionado from the States, who says libraries are no longer places where you get stuff, but they're places where you do stuff. How is that the case in your situation?
Yeah, it's very much the case, and we're freeing up more gathering spaces and open spaces within our locations for people to come in and interact, because I think that that's one of the paradoxes of this new world is everybody's connected, and yet we have a lot of people coming to us and saying that they're feeling isolated and they want to feel some connection with their community. So we're providing some open-ended activities within our spaces for them to engage in.
Well, let me follow up on technology, because Vickery has suggested Toronto, of course, is steeped in technology. They have a lot of stuff going on there. How about in more rural parts of the province? What technological services do you have today that you might not have had 10 years ago?
Well, certainly a big one for us, Steve, is wireless. And the addition of that, really there are very few options for high speed in rural communities. I think that's one of the things that maybe our urban counterparts are not fully aware of, is that we still don't have high speed, and we have lots of folks still on dial-up. And they're coming to the library to use our services, including the fact that we have high speed, which is now critical in so many ways for today's economy. So we're filling that need, and even with something like wireless, I mean, we're the only game in town when it comes to these kinds of services. We don't have a coffee shop down the road that's providing this, so the library is driving a lot of that.
That is something that the folks who live in the big cities probably do not appreciate, so glad to hear that. Carolyn, how about you in terms of technology that you offer now that you might not have 10 years ago?
Our public computers are in constant use, as is our wireless. The need for that continues to grow. People bring in their own mobile devices, but may not have the financial means to, similar to what Brian said, to have that connection at home and rely on that in our spaces.
There's an assumption, Vickery, that we don't need that at our Toronto public libraries because everybody's got, you know, super fast internet where they live. You're shaking your head already, eh?
No, not at all. That's not the case at all.
So there's still a need in Toronto even for that.
Absolutely. We have children who, when we close at 8:30, will plead with our staff not to close the branch because they don't have Wi-Fi at home and they can't finish their homework. So,
when they make that plea, what do you do?
Well, what we've done is we've turned on our Wi-Fi so it's on 24/7. So when we close up, people do have access to Wi-Fi just outside of our branches as well. So it's not a great solution, but it is a part of a solution. We also have Wi-Fi hotspot lending. So we lend Wi-Fi hotspot devices to families in need, and those are available and they're very popular. And it's a new initiative that we've introduced just in the last couple of years, and it's a growing, there's growing demand for that kind of service. It is surprising. The digital divide is a real issue, and ensuring digital inclusion at the public library is very important. And not just for the everyday technologies that we all take for granted, like Wi-Fi and internet, but also the emerging technologies like the 3D printers and the Mac Pro computers and the video and editing software and the coding classes. All of that is important for everyone to have access to.
You know what I just figured out? I read more books now on this thing.
Yes. A lot of people do.
I download ebooks or even audiobooks on here and listen to the books on my smartphone.
Yes, yes.
Now, you've probably been doing that for 100 years, but I just, tuned into that about 6 months ago.
Yeah, no, well, it's really just been about 10 years that the public libraries have been able to make that kind of resource available to people. But I have to say, physical books are still really popular as well.
No kidding, and may they ever be.
Yes.
Brian, how about you? E-readers or downloading, do you have that technology yet in the Elgin County library system?
Oh, absolutely. We have, you can come in and download movies, e-books, music, and we have a wide array of services. We also have great partnerships with, for instance, the London Public Library that allows our patrons to access their collections as well. But we also see that the traditional print format is still alive and strong, and I think that is kind of that e-reader era has crested. It has now gone back a little bit, and people are returning to traditional format.
Carolyn, there's going to be some old school folks who believe that by offering these kinds of services, digital technology services, you are decreasing the love affair for the actual book, and you are encouraging people to have shorter attention spans. Now, that's the argument. What do you say to that?
You know what? I say that we're just giving people more choices, because we see that people love still to read. They still love to engage with a story, but they want to choose, you know, their platform by which they do it. They want to either have a book, an ebook, and sometimes they'll choose to read the same story from 3 different formats within the same week, they say, whether they're going on vacation, traveling, or lying in bed at home. So it's really it's all supporting reading and literacy, but through different tools.
I guess if you're going away to the cottage for a month or something like that, it's pretty hard to take 15 books with you in the suitcase, but you'd like to be able to take some, and downloading them into your smartphone is the next best thing. Is that right, Carolyn?
Of course, yes. Yes, yeah.
Actually, Steve,
and that's very much what the trend is.
Brian, you were saying?
Yeah, if I could jump in on that too. Let's remember that often these cottage communities have libraries as well, and people would be surprised at what we also have available. I know I have a colleague in Halliburton. She talks about how much their usage goes up in the summer. So you might not have to do that in advance. You might be surprised what you can find when you get to that cottage.
Great point. And there's a beautiful public library in Kagawong on Manitoulin Island, where I am a frequent visitor in the summertime. Let's finish up in our last minute on this, Victory. In case some people, and there are lots of people who know that the library is there, but they haven't walked into the local branch for 20 years for whatever reason.
Right.
Why? This is Ontario Libraries Week, so why should they step in next week?
Well, they should step in next week, because I think that if they haven't been in a library in a long time, they'll be really surprised at what they find when they go to the public library. We have digital innovation hubs where people can create content and engage with others to learn about new technologies. We have programs on learning all sorts of different parts of what's going on in the world, discussions about global issues. We have fun times where people can get together and create things together, but also where they can sit down and discuss a book as well, which is a wonderful part of it. And the other thing about the public library is that we are accessible public space, and people like to be alone together at the public library as well as with people collaborating. And I think it's a real hub in the community, and it's a place where people can fulfill their potential, whatever that may be.
I like the way you said that. They like to be alone together.
Yes,
there is something
together.
to that.
Yes.
Brian Michelli at Elgin County, Carolyn Doyle at the London Public Library, Vickery Bowles, Toronto Public Library. Good of all of you to join us on TVO tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.